Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 this Monday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in here to O'Connor and Company. We got you covered. Boy, what a busy weekend it was all across the board. News, politics, the elections, and sports. And we got you covered at 7:05 with Joe DeGeneva, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. 7:35 brings us Trevor Maddich on the Miracle in Landover, as they're calling it. 8:05, Hung Kao running for Senate in Virginia. And then at 8:35, Laura Trump. She's the co-chair of the RNC and also the nominee's daughter-in-law. Sure, the one has nothing to do with the other. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
Good morning.
I don't know why I would suggest. Why am I suggesting there's nepotism here in this? Why? What is wrong with me? Can we just have the guests discuss? I
have nothing to say.
The issues. Well, this is. I get myself into trouble. I get everyone that I work with into trouble.
You do. Yeah.
I'm just pointing out that they have the same last name. Loyalty is important. I'm not criticizing. I'm pointing out it's important for me to give analysis.
Let's move on, shall we?
Everyone's talking about Trump's MSG, Madison Square Garden rally yesterday, but don't overlook the Allegiant Stadium outdoor rally that Kamala Harris had over the weekend. It was a huge crowd, and, well, there's a reason why it was such a huge crowd, because of this chick right here. Her name is Beyonce. She's got just one name, and you know exactly who she is.
That's right.
It's one of those people. And yes, to the left, that's where the country would go if Kamala Harris were to win the presidency. It was announced that Beyonce would be speaking and performing at this rally. And that'll sell some seats. Oh, sure. Here's MSNBC reporting it specifically over the weekend. Listen.
Beyonce will appear with Vice President Harris tomorrow in Houston, Texas. And the source says that Beyonce will perform during that appearance in Texas, obviously where she's from.
A source says that Beyonce will perform. Now, if you're having deja vu, it's understandable because this is exactly what happened at the Democrat National Convention. Remember, there's a surprise guest tonight. There's a surprise guest tonight. Beyonce is going to perform. And there were headlines after headlines after headlines. She didn't perform.
No, she didn't.
She didn't perform. She showed up and she spoke for, I'm told, 3 minutes. And listen, this is what she had to say. We'll listen to a little bit of it because she said, I'm here as a mother, and then went on to talk about abortion. Go.
We are so happy to be standing here on this stage as proud country Texas women supporting and celebrating the one and only Vice President Kamala Harris. A woman who's been pushing for what this country really needs right now. Unity. It's impossible not to feel the energy in this room, the positivity, the community, the humanity. We are at the precipice of an incredible shift, the brink of history.
Okay.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother.
Right. Okay. I do love it when mothers go up there and they just talk about wanting to make sure it's legal for other mothers to kill their babies before they're born. All right.
Yes, charming.
I'm not here as a celebrity was the key word here because that was it. She never performed. And you heard the excitement in the crowd because they thought she was going to say her speech and then and then someone was going to, if you like it, then you should have put
the lights were going to go out. Yeah.
Absolutely. She was dressed like it, but she didn't. No. And then when the crowd had the realization that she was not going to perform, just as Kamala Harris was introduced, because they're like, oh, well, she ain't going to perform after Kamala's speech. So this is it. So cut 4 here. Listen to what happens as they're booing, and Kamala has to deal with this.
Yes.
You hear the see you later because they were escorting people out of the crowd and people just started leaving in droves because they were there for Beyonce concert.
That is
and they were outraged.
Classic bait and switch.
Yes.
You'll hear a Beyonce concert. Free.
It's amazing.
Apparently, some people stayed in line for as much as 15 hours. Sat in line, waiting to get in, essentially for a free Beyonce concert. And I mean, look, people wait in line for Trump that long, but they didn't wait in line for Kamala that long. They were waiting for Beyonce. And
I assure you, when they waited, he filled Madison Square Garden to the roof, and including the entire floor as well, where the basketball game usually goes on at MSG. And they weren't there because they were going to get a free Lee Greenwood concert. Okay,
right,
I promise
right.
you.
Right.
But here's a little bit more of Kamala. She was visibly shaken. She did not know how to handle all these boos and all the chaos. You hear that? That's what she says, that when they're kicking people out of her rallies, she says, send them to that small rally down the street, which is supposed to be Trump's rally, which, of course, nobody's buying. But again, she's sort of mocking these people who are so angry that they're getting thrown out of her rally.
And those Kamala chants started after the boos and after someone actually screamed, and you could hear it, called her basically a piece of poop, which they used a different word for poop, really loudly. I mean, she heard it, and then she got rattled, and she looked back at her staff. It was very awkward.
And she's got this really awkward smile on her face as she's trying to handle the moment. Yeah, it's not a good look when you're trying to close things out and send this rally message. And of course, here's the other thing about this. Now no one's talking about what happened at the rally. They're only talking about what didn't happen at the rally. Which is Beyonce's performance. That did not happen. And it keeps going on. It keeps going on.
I guarantee you.
Do you hear how loud those? They're trying to drown out the boos with chants of Kamala.
I was
or
about
we're not
to
going
say
back.
yes. I was about to say I bet that was staff generated. They were like, "Oh crap, we've lost control of this," and so they started the chanting.
Yeah, no, it was a bad look. And again, the second time they've done this, false advertising, saying, "Hey, come on out, you'll see Beyonce for free." Then something other really strange thing happened.
Right.
They brought up 10 abortionists onto the stage, and they're all wearing white lab coats with stethoscopes around their necks.
Gross.
I love it when they put them in costume. These are doctors.
Yeah, exactly.
They're doctors. They're healthcare professionals, and they're here to talk about how important it is to make sure that abortion is legal, right? And so they stopped at wardrobe, and they got into their little cosplay with their white lab coats so that they could go up and they'd say, "Oh wow, look, they're doctors." And of course, they all look a little. I mean, no offense. I mean, I don't want to characterize people's appearance, but they look like they're evil villains, right?
Totally.
And then while they're up on stage, somebody in the crowd, I kid you not, this is like I'm sorry. You doubt the existence of God. This is the hand of God. Somebody in the crowd, as these 10 abortionists are up there with their medical lab coats and their stethoscopes around their necks, cosplaying as medical professionals, somebody in the crowd faints and has some sort of seizure and needs medical attention. And listen to what happened with the doctors at the podium. Listen.
Necessarily becoming ill and dying. Nationwide, I think someone needs some medical assistance over here.
So you can hear them screaming, "Medic, medic, someone needs help." And these abortionists who are dressed up like doctors, they have one role and one duty and one responsibility, and that's to give a speech for Kamala Harris. And so they see someone dying in the crowd, and
He's having a seizure.
Could someone help this person, please? Can someone, anyone, please? And it's like, you're dressed like a doctor.
You're a doctor.
You're literally a doctor. Go over there and help them.
We know you're the sort of doctors who kill people. So probably the guy who was seizing was like, no, you guys stay up there.
Right, exactly. Exactly. If you're at a rally and there's a bunch of abortionists up there and you need medical help, they're the they only know one procedure, and you the patient don't end up Looking good afterwards. It's an ugly thing. It's 6:15 WMAL traffic.
News is brought to you by Baird Financial.
Imagine being Beyonce and the idiot morning man on the major news talk station in Washington, D.C. when referring to you can only go back, 25 years to your first big hit, All the Single Ladies. And that's all I got. That's all I got. Hey, what's that Beyonce song? All the Single Ladies. We love Jonah Goldberg, don't we, Julie?
Oh.
We
No
we
comment.
loved to loathed Jonah Goldberg. We had a great Jonah moment. This is a classic. This has to go in the Jonah Goldberg Hall of Fame, this Jonah moment over the weekend. First, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when Donald Trump is talking about the governor of California, he's got a new nickname for him. Do you remember this? This is from 2 weeks ago.
How about this? Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of California.
Newsom.
He signed Newscom, I call him.
But do you think...
No, he corrected me. He corrected me. I said, that's the first time I've been corrected.
There are CEOs out here. If they said those sort of things about a rival CEO, they'd be sacked. Do you think it's
but they
fine
don't
for a
have to
president?
survive like me. They don't have to go through what I have to go through. There's never been a president that's been treated like me, so I have to fight
All right,
my own.
so that's the snobby Brit accented Bloomberg editor trying to correct him. It's Newsom. And Trump's like, no, I know what I said. Newscum. I call him Newscum.
And I mean, as if he doesn't have, he's famed for this, right? He called
of course.
sanctimonious, and, he's famous
so
for these little nicknames.
Jonah Goldberg takes to Twitter over the weekend, and he says, it's a small thing, but I think it's weird that Trump cannot pronounce Gavin Newsom's last name. Every time he puts a K sound in it, Newscum, I don't think it's deliberate.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, you can imagine the reaction from many of us.
Yes.
Many of us. Molly Hemingway said, I love this tweet so much. It's a small but absolutely perfect example of how never Trumpaloos are so consumed with hatred for the orange man that they can't even hear or understand his beyond obvious insult name game.
Yeah. One thing there is one thing that is the common denominator among all never Trumpers, and that is they are deadly serious people. They've completely lost their sense of humor. They can't laugh at anything, because to laugh at him is to admit he has charming moments, he has funny moments, and they can't do that. He's evil. Evil.
And Jonah thought this was some sort of dunk, and it was like another, he can't even pronounce, he doesn't even know Gavin Newsom's name. And then everybody obviously pointed out, no, he's doing that on purpose. And then he said, he retweeted it out, and he said, well, okay, people think I'm a moron for saying this, but I didn't realize it was his infantile name-calling, blah, 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 blah. And, when I replied, I said, I didn't think Jonah Goldberg was a moron for doing it. I actually thought it was quite I was literally shocked that this is a man who he has one job, and that's to follow politics.
I know.
And I'm sorry, whenever I see him writing or podcasting or going on television, which is very, very few moments these days because he's no longer really effective,
relevant.
But he's got some pretty strong opinions on Donald Trump. And for you to have such strong opinions about everything Donald Trump does without actually following the guy, and if you don't know that he calls Gavin Newsom Gavin Newscum, it means you're not actually following the man and actually tracking this campaign, and that's literally his only job.
Yep. I mean, we are talking serious bubble that this guy lives in. But I will tell you, Jonah Goldberg used to be considered one of the funniest members of sort of
erudite wit.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, but among commentators, he was considered one of the funniest. And I think the heartbreaking thing about sort of the Never Trump movement is watching this erosion of people's senses of humor, their ability to sort of, take a deep breath and realize this guy's from New York. He says some outrageous things. He says some funny things.
And they still can't. And they can't.
Insulting people is sort of a part of his whole thing. No, they can't. And even something as obvious as Newscum. First of all, also, there is, in some ways, there is this sort of you can tell it's a statesman would never call someone scum, right? It's this is because he's not your average Trump is not your average politician.
And they still don't get that.
No,
after all that, but he's literally paid handsomely to be an expert, the Republican expert, and he doesn't even know half of what he needs to know about the Republican nominee. All right, Jonah, I still hold out hope that someday Jonah's gonna come around and goes, what can I tell you guys? He broke me, but Well,
Not gonna
please
happen.
have me back. I apologize. Please let me back into the club. 624.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
636, O'Connor and Company, thanks so much. There's so much more to get to here, and we will, including the incredible Commanders' win over the Bears. Hail Mary fashion walk-off in Landover yesterday. Still reeling from that. At 7:35, Trevor Maddich will join us to talk about it. 8:05 brings us Hung Cow running for Senate in Virginia, and then 8:35, Laura Trump, co-chair of the RNC. Oh, and at 7:05, Joe DeGenevieve. He always joins us at Monday at 7:05. That's Julie Gunlock there. Good morning, Julie. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Good morning.
Morning. So Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast on Friday with Donald Trump, they recorded it Friday, and we were wondering if they were going to run it that night or the next day. They ended up dropping it in the evening. And I tell you, Julie, in just 2 days, this thing has over 32 million views on YouTube. That doesn't count the downloads. It doesn't count Spotify. That's just YouTube, 32 million.
Just amazing.
President Trump spoke for over 3 hours, just under 3 hours, excuse me. Somebody pointed out that it was the same length as Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, director's cut.
That's such a
sorta,
great way to put it.
Well, in the context of the Joe Rogan audience, it's exactly, trust me, it's very relevant. It's very relevant. It was, as is always the case with both of these two people, Joe Rogan and Donald Trump, it was a meandering, all-encompassing conversation that had just like, my brother said, oh, so what did they talk about? And it's like, everything. Like they talked about everything and anything. That's how these long-form conversations go with Rogan. Cut 10, take a listen to this in terms of how the Trump campaign has been able to reach young voters.
You know, I'm on TikTok now.
Congratulations.
And I've done really well. No, but you know the crazy, have you seen the numbers? Billions of hits. It's crazy.
I'm sure. TikTok's a wild application.
And I've gone up 30 points. A Republican is always down 30 with young people. I'm plus 30. And I'm on TikTok.
I think
it's had a huge impact.
Young people are rejecting a lot of this woke. Young people are tired of being yelled at and scolded. They're tired of these people that they think are mentally ill telling them what the moral standards of society should be today. And people are upset.
There's a big difference now, but even in just a couple of years, I was shaking hands with people. They're young people.
The rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system. You're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, they
I
do.
got more guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all.
After the fact, by the way, Joe Rogan gave us thoughts. He said Trump's got an ability to just keep going. It was crazy. The podcast was 3 hours long. The guy didn't pee before the podcast. He didn't pee after the podcast, and he didn't drink anything during the podcast, which
really is remarkable.
So in case you were wondering as you watched a 3 hour podcast, well, how did he go to the bathroom? Well, now you know. By the way, we do a 4 hour show every morning. Generally speaking, at least one potty break, if not two, in case anyone's wondering. And when it comes to Julie, about 7.
No, stop it. And no one's wondering. Okay.
You do. You have a bladder the size of a peanut. Constantly going to the bathroom. Sometimes in the middle of a rant, I'm doing a monologue. She'll just leave, come back. I'm finishing up. Back now. Somebody commented on this. This is a huge moment for media. It's a huge moment for politics. All of the podcasts, people are going to talk about this after the fact. All of the podcasts that Donald Trump decided to do, when they say that, here's my theory. People are always talking about, the gender gap and how Trump, Republicans are always, down with women and women. Well, the gender gap goes both ways. Democrats have had a real problem with men and especially young men. And Trump decided, okay, I've got a gender gap with women. Instead of catering to these white suburban women who probably already hate me and try to, change my style or change my delivery or change my policies to accommodate them, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to do what I do. And I'm going to build up my numbers with men. So it'll offset the numbers that I'm losing with women. And it seems to have worked. so far, if you believe the demographic breakdowns in these polls. And somebody commented on this podcast on YouTube. It said, imagine telling someone 15 years ago that the host of Fear Factor, Joe Rogan, and the host of The Apprentice, Donald Trump, talking to each other on a podcast would be the most important political event of 2024. Like, this is the world we're living in right now.
Well, and Larry, if I could just say, earlier, just in our last segment, we were talking about Jonah Goldberg. There are these never Trumpers that they were the ones who had the political conversations. They owned that space. Yeah. They were the most important voices when it came to politics in America. Trump has broken that mold, absolutely shattered it, and it's never coming back. And that is that is the root of some of the resentment we see. The consultants, the columnists, the people who really were part of, they were the political establishment on both sides. And so when you see the left get mad at Trump, some of those on the right join them because they're mad at the loss of power. And Joe Rogan and Trump and some of these other people who have emerged as now being sort of thought leaders, the sort of hoity-toity, sort of establishment, they can't take it.
They can't. They're incredibly. They hate the fact that their voice wasn't listened to in 2016 and now is irrelevant. It's like, and again, I was on Meet the Press. Why don't people care about what I said for 7 minutes on Meet the Press?
And I just want to make that point because they will say he's icky and he says terrible things and he's mean and mean tweets and all and that is not it. It is personal for them. It is a loss of power. It's as DC as it gets.
By the way, one other item here, Donald Trump and other people in the campaign have said that this strategy to do these podcasts, the multiple ones that he's not just Joe Rogan, but there's a huge number of podcasts that both he and J.D. Vance have done that do appeal to young men, and they have gotten millions and tens of millions of views. Apparently, it's all Barron Trump's idea. His son, his 19-year-old son, Barron, is the one that said, that you should go do this one, go do that. He's the one engineering this whole thing. And yes, they are jealous. I for one, as a host of a podcast and a radio program and sort of, if I may, an expert in spoken word media in the realm of news and politics, I'm not jealous at all. I am very happy for Joe Rogan. Very, very, very happy. So happy for him. Really, really happy.
I'm sorry.
At 6:44. Kamala Harris is back, Julie, with a brand new accent. She was campaigning at a church over the weekend because Democrats are allowed to do that. If you're a Republican and you go to a church, you're a Christian nationalist. But Kamala is not either of those things, actually. But at the pulpit, she decided to do her, James Brown, Reverend Al, Blues Brothers, I'm going to talk like a black preacher. Because I don't know if you know this, but she actually grew up in the South and attended a Southern Baptist church.
Would that be South Canada?
Alongside Joe Biden, actually, apparently, who also was at that black church. All right, here she is, cut 13, Kamala Harris, her brand new preacher accent. Go.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Oh, God. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning. And church morning is on its way.
There you go, girl.
That is so embarrassing.
It's the cringiest thing you've ever... What self-respecting Canadian like Kamala Harris is? What self-respecting Canadian talks like that? That is ridiculous.
Oh, you can just feel the pandering. Pander. Oh, it's so cringe.
I wonder when she went to Hindu temple with her mother if they talked like that, when they were praying to Vishnu. Allegedly. I don't know that for sure, but I'm just... this is my October surprise. She worships Vishnu, right?
Yes.
Can we enjoy this again? This is just so delightful. I love it and this is why I love it, because this is the thing that Trump will never do this. Trump is who he is. Love him or hate him.
That's exactly right.
And most people are one or the other. He's not going to do the BS. Listen to this again.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
Oh,
I'm telling you, my prior life before I was a radio host, I worked in the professional theater. I would cast actors in certain roles. I was a producer.
You would cast her, wouldn't you? In The Color Purple.
She's one of the best performers I've ever seen. She's really great. She's got a bright future ahead of her. Not as a president, but cut 15 here. Terrence Williams, a really funny guy on social media, discovered that Mark Cuban, who was campaigning with Doug Emhoff, he's the husband. He's the very heterosexual and monogamous husband of Kamala Harris. He was delivering a speech, and Mark Cuban was right next to him and literally falling asleep on the stage next to him.
Is that Mark Cuban, or is that Rachel Maddow? I can't tell.
It's hard to say, but Rachel Maddow is a journalist. She would never go to a political rally. I'm sure it's Mark Cuban.
True, of course,
Here we go.
yes.
30 years, so I'd have to explain to her what I do for a living. After 7 of those years, I had my own small firm.
Wake up!
I understand, and I've talked to her, and I've met entrepreneurs all over the country.
Miss Lady in the back, tap on Mark's shoulder.
The last 13
Mark, get up!
I like Terrence. If you watch the video, he's nodding. He's just nodding off. You want at the very least act like you're awake when the guy. And people's like, oh no, he was looking at his phone. No, if you zoom out, he doesn't have anything in his hands.
Well, also, even if he's looking at his phone, also it indicates boredom.
Right.
Boredom.
Exactly.
Okay.
It was quite a weekend. We've got more to get to as well. It's 6:53.